This video is brought to you by catbeast.com. Design your own custom snapbacks and hats.
How's it going, guys? My name's Wilson. Before I start this video, I would like to give a shout out to my sponsor, catbeast.com. Catbeast.com is your one-stop shop for custom snapbacks made from people all around the world. You can design your own custom hats, snapbacks, beanies, and finding other great designs that suits your fitting. Now on to the video. Defense wins championships. Starting from the beginning of times to the 1960s, Celtics anchored by legendary Bill Russell, arguably the greatest defensive big in NBA history, igniting to an all-time player best 11 championships, the first all-time great steal signified by the legendary John Havlicek 1965 Eastern Division Finals, all the way to cap off the most memorable dynasty in recent memory. No better than the Last Dance Michael Jordan stole the ball away from Karl Malone, leading to beautiful offense, haunting the entire state of Utah 24 years and counting, to the greatest defensive team of the 21st century, Tayshaun Prince erasing Reggie Miller's layup out of nowhere, to even more recent, the greatest play of LeBron James's career. Despite all his long-standing accolades, the Game 7 block on Iguodala doesn't get bigger than that, to Giannis' momentum-shifting rejection on Ayton, Drew Holiday's steal leading to some of the most spectacular finishes, to the 2022 Warriors, Andrew Wiggins' magnificent lockdown D on Jason Tatum. None of these teams would have been able to cherish their celebrations the night of victory if it wasn't for those majestic plays, picture-perfect game timing stops. How's it going, guys? My name's Wilson. This video will highlight the greatest defensive players to have never won a Defensive Player of the Year award, which started in the 82-83 season, the 5 greatest defensive players before that time who would have likely won the award 0 times if it was a thing even in the 60s. Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, John Havlicek, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. A combined total 27 all-defensive teams, which started in Russell's final season 1969. West made defensive teams 5 of his final 6 seasons since the award started, all in his 30s. Some all-time greats, even considered top 5 defensive players in multiple years, just couldn't win the award due to others having better defensive seasons. Put many of these stars in today's NBA instead of the toughest defensive era in the 90s and 2000s. They win multiple DPOY awards, but due to the presence of Dikembe Mutombo, Ben Wallace, both tied for most all-time with 4, Dwight Howard has 3. Ironically, Marcus Camby and Marc Gasol, what do all these guys have in common? All have prevented a player on this list the luxurious DPOY award. Howard having all of these in his early to mid-20s show how great Orlando Magic Dwight was. But without further ado, 15 of the greatest NBA defenders to never win DPOY. Number 15, starting with Maurice Cheeks of the Philadelphia 76ers, the floor general for one of the greatest team all-time 83 Sixers, highlighted by the all-time greats Moses Malone and Dr. J, the 4-time All-Star in year 5, the first season the award started. Mo made his first of 5 total defensive teams, 4 of which first teams, one of the most underappreciated players and forgotten Hall of Famers. Nicknamed Little Mo, plays with a nice flow, always helped his team grow, absolutely wasn't slow. 1980s NBA opposing players should have regret doing the blow. You know, the thing that's white as snow. Every time he picks their pockets, they go oh no. Locking them down, stance going low. Stance with his opponents toe to toe. Mo always puts on a defensive show. Definition of a winning pro. 1983 NBA champion plateau. Average almost 14 points, 7.5 assists, 2.5 steals from 83 to 87. His best defensive years, silenced demeanor, 6 all-time in steals, a modern comparison to a prime Rondo. Been a coach in the league for several teams, starting in the mid-90s to present-day Bulls assistant. 14. Bobby Jones, the Secretary of Defense, one of the greatest 6-man, the most defensive team, a player you're not familiar with, 11 of them, 9 firsts. Too bad the award took place his 4th to last season. Already 31 at the time, the former ABA MVP runner-up finished first team All-D in both 83 and 84 and second in 85. One of the most relentless do-it-all type roles, the clutch steals, disruptive defensively, often leads to fast break dunks. Here's the greatest point guard all-time praising Bobby.
Bobby Jones in my era was the best defensive player in the league.
If the NBA had a blue-collar all-time team, Jones's name on top of that list, intensity, intelligence, it's only right that the 4-time All-Star finally got inducted into the Hall 2019. Joe Dumars, the 5-time All-Defensive Teamer, spent all his career with the Bad Boy Pistons. Considered undersized at 6'3", the perfect 2 who can score, defend, and play make, proved to make clutch plays, especially in the '89 finals, the block and save, most responsible for guarding MJ and beating the Bulls 3 straight years, in sync with all his teammates with the Jordan rules, the locked-in mindset, realizing there's no room for error, never show any emotions, unselfish. Jordan called Dumars one of the best, allowed MJ to expand his offensive game. The famous SI cover 1989 sums it up best. Number 12, John Stockton, all-time leader in steals by a wide margin. His defensive peak might have never been as good as any of the guys on this list, but just 6'1", 170, a small 6-foot wingspan, many wonder if Stock could have truly guarded guys bigger, faster, stronger. The longevity and consistency as a floor general, second to none, 5 defensive second teams, never known as a lockdown defender, but a master at falling, drawing charges, maybe the best flapper to ever do it. Getting the benefit of the doubt, being smaller than everybody else, excellent help D, always creeped in for the ball whenever opponents had a mismatch, read plays very well, at times sneaky dirty, a scrappy gym rat, without showing any of Pat Bev's antics, one of the smartest to ever play, second in steals per 100 possessions even at age 39, understood all the defensive concepts. 11, Dennis Johnson of the Boston Celtics, the 5-time All-Star, part of the '80s Celtics success, already having won a title and finals MVP with the Sonics, 9 defensive teams, 5 of which happened after the award was named. Defensive first between 80 to 83, also 87, super clutch, even convinced KC Jones to let him guard Magic before Game 4 of the '84 finals, forced 22 turnovers the final 4 games, Boston winning 3 of those, responsible for the tragic Johnson nickname. Bird called DG the most intelligent player he ever played with, a huge game changer. After Philly's Andrew Toney cooked Boston in multiple postseasons, before '84, brought in Dennis, who slowed him down the '85 playoffs, one of the best all-around guards for 11 straight seasons. Between '78 to '88, Dennis won between 46 to 67 games that span, drew plenty of comparisons to Walt Frazier, his ability to sacrifice and play the most crucial roles for whatever team needed him best. Truly one of the most underrated players. 10, Chris Paul. Despite the lack of size, the IQ, instinct, savviness makes him elite the other side of the ball. One of the best anticipations, a master at ripping the ball away, 6-time steals champ, a natural sense of awareness on passing lanes without gambling, one of the few dedicated players to watch lots of game tape and knowing his opponent's game plans already. As pesky a player there is for his generation, can hang with the taller guys, doesn't get out-muscled too much, super tenacious, momentum changing plays, whether it's a big after securing a rebound, CP puts his hands there, disrupting their moment, made defensive first team every season with the Clippers, also thicker than most expected, gets under his opponent's skin and plays mental games to his advantage, feisty one-on-one. If there was any other elite offensive point guard out there sharing a backcourt with JJ Redick, like a Trae Young or a Kyrie, it'd be the worst defensive backcourt there is with no size, but CP's ability to guard twos and intelligence makes him a great off-ball defender, a master at pulling the chair, calculated in every move he anticipates, as good and disciplined a defender there is for anybody who's 6 foot and under. 9. Patrick Ewing out of Georgetown, the former #1 pick, was considered the next Bill Russell, more known for his insane athleticism, but his lack of NBA titles and lack of Hall of Famers he's played with while being in the best big men era is why Ewing's name goes unnoticed. Only 3 defensive second teams because of rivals like Hakeem Robinson and Mark Eaton, the Rodmans and Mutombos of the world, the list goes on. Ewing even averaged 4 blocks a game and wasn't even considered for the award, didn't even lead the NBA in that category due to the amount of insane rim protectors. Nobody averaged 4 blocks a game since the '96 season. Although he didn't turn out to be the second coming of Bill Russell, his knees already slowed him down the first couple seasons, responsible for anchoring the tough, physical, hard-nosed Knicks. If Ewing played in today's NBA, would have easily won a couple DPOYs, especially when Rudy already has 3. 8. Andrei Kirilenko, still one of the dopest nicknames, AK-47, was an absolute stopper. Although his prime didn't last long, made 3 defensive teams between 04 to 06, unique jack of all trades, super versatile, guarded all 5 positions, had the quickness and lateral movements, the ideal perfect defender at 6'9", even led the league in blocks, 3.3 a game in the 05 season, a hybrid mixture of Dreamy and Iguodala on D, 7'4" wingspan, finished 3rd in DPOY voting 2006, super underrated when it comes to all-time defenders because he's not much of a big name, also had a shorter prime. 7. LeBron James, peak physical prime LBJ was a specimen the game has never seen, would drop 32 on 12 of 15 shooting and lock down guys on the other end. Used to block a lot of 7-footers, although defense is one aspect of James's game that's declined as he's aged, just impossible to be great on D every possession without getting tired. But from 2009 to 2014, LeBron at the height of his defensive powers, although still amazing when needed to. During his second stint with Cleveland, James had to carry more of an offensive burden at the time, stopped making defensive teams after Miami. Of course, still had the capabilities to lock down, but just didn't do it as often. Finished second to Dwight Howard in 09 and Marc Gasol 2013. Seeing smaller guys try to pass by James was like hitting a brick wall. Even guarded 7'2" Roy Hibbert at stretches when Bosh was out in the playoffs. Way more known back in the day than for his chase downs. Agile, smart, guarded 1-5 as well as anybody during the Miami days, especially in the 2013 title series versus San Antonio. From blocking 7-footers Tiago Splitter and Tim Duncan at the rim to disrupting quick guards like Tony Parker, James was the best help defender in the league during those Heat years, always seemed to be at the right position and smart at not fouling. After Cleveland hired defensive-minded coach Mike Brown, got the best out of LeBron on D. By 2008, James became a very good defender, but in 2009, Brown officially became elite on that end, part of the reason why Cleveland won 66 games that year. 6. Jason Kidd, one of the best point guards to ever do it. Despite his lack of efficiency, Kidd was absolutely more of an eye test player. You had to truly watch to understand he was a top 5 player at his peak, playing in his prime in the early to mid 2000s. Kidd arguably the second best defensive point guard all time, behind Gary Payton. When it comes to the debate between the 2 best defensive point guards, only Kidd's name gets mentioned with GP. Top-notch IQ on both ends, 9-time defensive team, great hands, had the size at 6'4", a master at reading the passing lanes even when he got older, with the 2011 Mavs already 38, responsible for containing Kobe and LeBron as an on-ball defender, a Swiss Army knife, can play and excel on any given team with any other star player, you name it. 5. Kobe Bryant, 9-time defensive first team, 12 total selections, second most all time. Some believe those awards came from reputation, especially toward the latter part of his prime, given the heavy offensive burden he carried, especially the post-Shaq era. But in the big games when needed, Kobe stepped right up to the task. After Westbrook kept torching Derek Fisher 2010 playoffs, Kobe locked up Russ Game 5, held him to 4 of 13 shooting, 8 turnovers, LA won by 24, never backed down from any challenge. One of the best on-ball guards the game has ever seen, much more known as a lockdown defender with great stances, balanced footwork, going at it against the other team's best players, had memorable clips containing prime Wade, LeBron, Iverson, McGrady, and young Kyrie. The competitive nature, second to none, did whatever was necessary to win games, became the youngest player at 21 to make defensive first team, locked down moments in the 2000 playoffs, especially Game 7 vs Portland, hounded Mark Jackson throughout the finals, didn't gamble too much, that's why he only averaged above 2 steals a game once. Part of his Mamba mentality was his outlier competitiveness, came closest to winning the award, tied for 3 in 2002, was never the clear-cut best defender in the league at any point, but had an argument for best wing defender between 2000 to 2003, but afterwards didn't have the consistency like an Artest, Kirilenko, or Tayshaun Prince in the mid-2000s given his offensive load. 4. Tony Allen, the grandfather of the grit and grind Grizzlies, 6-time all-defense, only 6'4", strong as hell, guarded point guards to power forwards. Kobe gave Allen the nod on the greatest defender he ever played against, never asked for any help. Only finished top 4 for DPOY one time in 2011, limited offensively, most instinctive risk taker, great at reading the right plays, his effort on D for his era second to none, similar qualities to Dennis Rodman without the rebounding, even gotten into Kevin Durant's head in the intense Thunder Grizzlies series, holding KD to a 3 of 14 Game 6 2011 shooting night. Although Durant still put up high numbers and OKC won won those battles with Memphis. The amount of work needed to be done, Tony Allen absolutely fearful. Number 3, Bruce Bowen could be recalled the godfather of the 3-and-D, a master at the corner threes, an assignment holding down the opposing team's best players. His antic viewed as super dirty and borderline dangerous at times, closed in tightly on the shooter, got away with a lot for his era without getting caught, super quick feet, one of the rare non-all-stars to have his jersey number retired by San Antonio, 8 total defensive teams, first team from 04 to 08, only made about $30 million in total earnings, but can easily get a $120 million contract from any team in today's league. Mr. Iron Man played over 500 consecutive games at one point, super durable, guarded Kobe every time matched up with the Lakers, came as close as second place for the award between 2005 to 07, behind Ben Wallace and Marcus Camby. His team first in defensive rating for 3 straight seasons. Absolutely locked down Chauncey Billups. Game 7 of the 05 finals, proved to be the difference maker, didn't get a ton of blocks and steals. Also held 22-year-old LeBron to 22 a game on 35% shooting the finals. His team 10 points better on defense per 100 possession when Bowen's on the floor for that 07 title team. Even guarded 7-footers like Nowitzki. San Antonio wouldn't have won those 3 titles without Bruce's defensive mastermind and shooting. 2. Scottie Pippen, part of the best defensive backcourt duo alongside MJ, a combination of effort, hustle, smarts, and suffocating opposing teams in a 48-minute game on the yearly basis. Physically wears down his opponents like they couldn't take it anymore. Just like how Scottie and MJ made life miserable for every team, whether it's man-to-man or help on the rotation. Throughout the 6 titles, Scottie made a huge name for himself in the biggest stage after switching on to Magic Johnson and made him work tirelessly to get into any rhythm. It's an absolute travesty. Scottie never won DPOY. At times, it seemed like he has eyes in 4 different parts of his head. Anticipation second to none. 10 total defensive teams, finished as high as number 2 twice for DPOY, behind Mutombo and behind Gary Payton in '96. Being 6'8" and a 7'3" wingspan, super imposing figure for smaller guards, locked up Mark Jackson the '98 conference finals. There's no player in today's game that dedicates their game as much on D as Scottie did. Also one of the best at drawing charges, always puts his body on the line. The closest thing to seeing Scottie's defense, San Antonio's Kawhi Leonard between 2015 to 17, but Scottie played hard on D every game for a whole decade. With higher athleticism, him and Jordan absolutely push each other's competitive nature, especially like how they bully Tony Kukoc in Barcelona. Sadly, the Bulls organization should have paid Scottie a couple more millions given how hard he played. A strong case for the best defensive wing all time next to teammate Jordan. Number 1, Tim Duncan. It's an absolute travesty and sickens me to this very day. The big fundamental never won a single Defensive Player of the Year award. Absolute robbery. The biggest robbery to all basketball humanity. 15-time All-Defense, led the number 1 defense 5 different times in his absolute prime for the '99 title team in 2001 with a limited roster, and between 04 to 06, even the starting center for the 2016 Spurs, who also had the number 1 defense in the league, still solid to his very last season. A huge reason for Timmy not winning any defensive awards, splitting votes with teammates Bowen, because Tim was the sole focus offensively the first half of his career. Bruce got closer to winning the award, and early on, having Twin Tower mate David Robinson, a former 2-time Defensive Player of the Year winner, Duncan much more known for his scoring in his earlier days, which stood out more than his sensational defense, but he was equally as superior on both ends. Outplayed Shaq the '99 playoffs, held the Knicks to under 80 points in the finals. Every time somebody tried to get near the rim, absolutely no chance because the Twin Towers always right there. Duncan, also the very best guy to guard Shaq, could hold his own a little bit, held the Diesel to under 45% shooting versus his Spurs in the 02 playoffs after shooting 58% in the regular season. More so, it was Kobe who killed San Antonio. Duncan's 2003 Finals defensive clinic in the discussion as greatest defensive series all time helped Kenyon Martin to 3 of 23 shooting the final game, 34% for the series, because he didn't have flashy blocks like a Ben Wallace. His timing, rotations, and positioning second to none. Didn't have the insane athleticism after his injury in 2000, but always ready to help and contest, a master at going straight up and not falling for the pump fix. and just making his impact every single time. Qualities which Karl Anthony Towns still can't learn to do. Duncan's presence to contest shots, his team D and individual post defense as perfect as any power forward there was, overshadowed by Ben Wallace, who was only known for defense. Then came the athletic Magic Dwight Howard, a way flashier defense as Duncan was aging. Even as late as 2015 at age 38, Duncan still made defensive second team. The length plus the feel, always composed and disciplined, never lunging, the closest thing to a modern day Bill Russell with better offense. Given that Gobert won 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, had any version of 2001 to 2007 Duncan been in today's NBA, he easily win the award 90% of the time. In my opinion, Duncan should have won the award over Marcus Camby in 2007, finished first in defensive rating and defensive win shares on the second best defensive team, while Camby anchored the 11th best defense while playing 10 fewer games. The most shocking stat I'll leave you with, Duncan over his 19-year career blocked over 3,000 shots, only goaltended 15 times. Thank you so much for watching this video. Honorable mentions includes Karl Malone, Andre Iguodala, Doug Christie, Kevin McHale, Drew Holiday, Shane Battier, Sean Marion, Nate McMillan, Gerald Wallace, Dwayne Wade, Serge Ibaka, and Mookie Blaylock. Thanks again for watching. Which one of these guys shocked you most that never won a DPOY award? Let me know in the comments below. More good stuff coming soon. I love all of you. See you next time.